Every year, millions dream of donning that graduation cap and stepping into a future filled with promise. Yet behind the graduation lies a daunting reality, a reality where the soaring cost of education prompt a critical question. Is a college degree actually worth the burden of student debt? Join us today as we dissect the hard numbers and, truthfully, the harsh realities across various professions, exploring if your dream school could turn into a financial nightmare. This isn't just another discussion, it's an essential guide for anyone considering college. Developing a deep ask to yourself to say, is college worth the debt? Understand the ROI of your degree. And today, that's what we're covering. So let's dive in and really figure out, is college worth it? Let's go.
Welcome to the Financial Mirror. Where future success is reflected in our knowledge of fixing the one thing we can control, ourselves.
Welcome to the Financial Mirror, and thanks for joining me today as we continue to work to improve the one thing that we can control, ourselves. Here at the Financial Mirror, it is not about the numbers and spreadsheets alone, but about transforming and educating you on money so that you can make smarter financial decisions. If this is the first time you are joining in, don't forget to hit subscribe on YouTube to be notified of all the new episodes as they release. If you are listening to this on a podcast platform of your choice, don't forget to leave a 5-star review and a written comment, as both go a long way in getting this information out to other listeners. So today we are going to assess whether financial cost of various college degrees justifies the potential debt that is incurred. Now, here's what I am going to tell you, and this is my preface to this episode. I'm not here to knock anyone's degree. I'm not here to tell you that what you did was absolutely worthless. That's not the intent. What my intent is to really dive into the fact that some degrees, the return on investment, the ROI, just does not support the jobs, the common jobs that you would get with that degree. Now, that does not go on to say that you may have got one of these degrees and then flipped it to figure out this very niche job that you could do to make way more money than what is being prescribed in this episode. So once again, just speaking generally here, when we look at the most common jobs that come out of certain degrees, that's what we're honing in on today. So we're going to talk about kind of analyze some earnings by different majors that people have. And the other thing I want to talk about is kind of like, let's say that we end up collectively agreeing today that college is not worth the debt for most. What are some other alternative paths? Or maybe just it's not about the money. It's just you just don't think college is right for you for whatever reason. I want to discuss some alternatives to just the traditional, like, I'm going to go to a 2-year college or a 4-year college or whatever. I want to talk about that and then some other financial strategies that you can utilize to make sure that you're staying out of debt. We have seen multiple attempts by different, different campaigns. Biden has done a few different attempts at canceling, debt. He has canceled some debt. I'm not going to say that he hasn't canceled any. He has canceled some debt. But for the vast majority, if you probably were not in that boat, they were very, very, very specific use cases. And if you may or may not have been in that boat. And the most recent big push where you went and signed up and all that, most of those people did not get debt relieved, and that kind of went away. So I'm not sure where all those applications went. However, today I want to talk about, like, there's many people struggling with debt. And student debt is one of the growing concerns. So today, I want to really get after that. I really want to talk about it. A lot of students right now are graduating, and there's other, and I was talking specifically like high school graduates. Like people are starting to graduate high school, and they're probably thinking about like, I want to go to college. Today, I just want to ask the hard question out loud. I want to be I want to bring up the elephant in the room and just say, let's look at it. Is it worth it? So I want you to think about this. And I want to put the kind of just this visual of this scenario is, let's just say that there's a multitude of students, and 4 years ago they all joined this college, and I'm a University of Alabama fan if you didn't know. But let's say that all these students enrolled at Alabama, and they wanted the best business administration degree that they could get. 4 years ago, they decided that's what they were going to go. That's what they were going to do. These students walked across the stage at their university. They got their graduation diploma, and they had this huge heart saying, I am ready to go take on the world. Now, business administration is a decent degree, and there's a lot that you can do with it. It's a very broad degree. So many probably were like, yeah, I'm about to go and work for this company or this, institution or whatever, and I'm going to make a ton of money. And then they realized it's a highly competitive field. There were potentially fewer opportunities than they originally thought. And now they are struggling, right? And they have all this debt. They're barely making ends meet. And this probably sounds eerily familiar to people that you're either around or that you associate with. So this is not a unique story. But what I'm here to talk about today is that this story is consistently happening, and we're not doing much about it. And I really do. I want to bring up and ask the hard question, and I hope that you'll entertain it. I hope that you entertain this question: is college actually worth it? Is college worth the debt that you accumulate? Right? Is what you receive, does it actually have a good return on investment for the debt that you accumulate? So let's dive into it. And I want to start off with the reality of like low paying majors. Once again, I talked about the overall general speaking, but let's look at first the reality of low paying majors. So there was some statistics from the New York Federal Reserve, and it described how certain majors, specifically like the liberal arts, the performing arts, theology, they all have super low median annual incomes among 75 surveyed majors. And that study, it did show that the median income figure was around 38,000. And, like 38,000 is I mean, it's a good starting point. It really is a good starting point. I'm not telling anyone that 38,000 is not a good starting point, but this is like median across the board that people are making 38,000. So in context, the national personal, median personal income in 2022, this is data that was able to be pulled, was 40,480. So not too far off, about $2,000, but still slightly lower. And that was for median personal income across the board. Now, here's why I want to bring this up. Because there is a growing amount of student debt, a growing amount. And I think back to like when I was in college, and I'm like, I think back then it was like, I don't know, if you didn't have like room and boards, this is just tuition, like $5,000 a semester. So at the end of a year, or excuse me, at the end of a year, you would have spent, if you only took fall and spring, we're not going to summer semester, fall and spring, you're looking at, and you graduated in 4 years, you're looking at about 40,000 in debt. Now, the quick math would say, oh, well, if you make 38,000 and then you have 40,000 in debt, oh, you can just pay it off in a year. well, don't forget, you got bills, you got all these other like living expenses that you have to pay for. You have wants that you're going to have to contend with. You can fight those off, but that is a tough pressure. All I'm saying is it is taking people a long time, because the amount of time it takes someone to save $40,000 on a $40,000 a year income, annual income, takes some time. Don't forget, that's all while this debt is accumulating interest and growing and growing and growing and growing, right? So there's a ton of things out there, right? A ton of things out there. But I want you to see that there is a concern here, right? If the median person is graduating and coming out with sort of, and this is specifically talking these like lower median annual income degrees, you're graduating with a $38,000 median income, and back then when I was in college, you were coming out with $10,000 a year, let's say $40,000 for a 4-year, and that's not including room and board. People are pulling out student loans for room and board, which is almost just as expensive. So that $40,000 is probably about $80,000 for the average student if they needed money for room and board. They're coming out head over heels in debt. Head over heels in debt. So what does all this mean? What does it mean? Well, this means that there is a huge long-term financial impact for people that are going to college and getting low income or low paying majors in college, right? Like there's a huge impact on financial stability. So when we look at that and you're like, you hear everything, and I hear it. But you hear people and they say, well, kids today are just like, they can't afford to buy a house, in today's market. They can't afford to get on their feet. They're overwhelmed in credit card debt. Well, yeah, I can see that. I can see that from someone that has $80,000 in debt on a $38,000 income. Yeah, that's going to be hard to kind of get over that hump, right? Like that will take some effort. And I put myself back in like 20-year-old, 22, 24-year-old shoes. And man, like there's a lot of things I want to do in life, and I'm spending money, right? Like spend. So what I want to tell you is that there is some impact on financial stability when you are in one of these majors. Now, this is not to say that there's not great majors out there, right? So before we kind of talk about some of those impacts, I want you to understand that there is a big amount of people that are traditionally getting degrees in things that are not as impactful, right? Like so. Sorry, I was pulling up a link. I wanted to be able to show this, but what I wanted to talk about was kind of like, what are those low-level degrees? Like when we look at it, what are those low-level degrees? So I wanted to pull this up and let you see. There are low-paying degrees that are out there, and one of the biggest ones is, in kind of just ranking these, is college majors that pay the least for mid-career workers, right? I wanted to kind of look at that because that's where people have progressed, and I'm looking at that one over the others, because the others are, if you go to the article, and I'll share it, down in the link below. But if you go to that article, you can see it talks a lot about college majors that pay the least right after college. There is some overlap there, but what I wanted to talk about is specifically colleges that the college majors that pay the least for mid-career workers. That means that they've put in some time. That means they're probably a decade or two into their career, right? Like they've probably been working for 10 or 15 years. And I know 2 decades is 20, but I'm just saying 10 to 15 years they've been working. These are like the median pays for some of these degrees, lowest being early childhood education at $48,000 a year. Kind of the first four. The next two is 52,000 for general education and elementary education, and 55 for secondary education. Right, like crazy. Followed by miscellaneous education at 56. But what I'm getting at is that if you're going to school, if you're going to school to be a teacher at a school, if you're going to school to be in the education profession, man, I love you to death. I do. I appreciate you. I think that there's great work in, educating, our up and coming generation and all that stuff. But man, you did not go to that profession for the money. You're going to be 10 or 15 years into your job, and you're going to barely be making $50,000 a year, right? Like, and you're 10 to 15 years into this career field. So I'm not telling you that you don't do it, but man, love your job. Figure out other ways to make some money. Try to if you're going to go into those degrees, I mean, really, really, really push for looking at things like, and I'm kind of getting to some of the other things, but I want to talk about this because education does mean a lot to me. And I do want people, I want great school teachers out there, and I could talk a whole episode on my beliefs and opinions about school teachers, but good school teachers are needed. And I don't think we have a lot of good school teachers nowadays. So if you have a passion for teaching, I encourage you to go get after it, but you're not going for the money. I promise you that. They just don't make a lot of money. So I would tell you, stick to scholarships, really dive into scholarships, really dive into grants, really dive into things like that are going to help pay for that school. Because coming out, you don't want to end up with a lot of debt. It's going to be hard to pay back. So, but looking at some of these other ones, social services, theology, family and consumer services, all in that $55,000 to $60,000 area. Performing arts, nutrition sciences, like getting up into the 60, 65. Liberal arts, foreign languages in the 65 to 70 range. This is 10 to 15 years into a career field, right? So, I truly have to ask, the question is it worth it, right? Is it worth it? And where I landed, and I went through this, and I always like to give my opinion when I can, and this is one I'll give an opinion on, but is it worth it? Is it worth it? I'm going to say, kind of looking at it, is I would challenge traditional views. I do not think that I kind of break. Okay, let me answer this straightforward. I compare this. You have STEM and you have non-STEM. Okay, I'm going to say that STEM and non-STEM, and that is kind of how I break these out. If you are going into a STEM field, which is a science, technology, engineering, or mathematics field, there is opportunity for you to make a substantial salary right out of the gates. Entry level, you're going to be doing okay. Mid-career, you're going to be doing fairly good. Next, you're going to be doing pretty well off if you stick with it for long enough. For STEM major, there's high earning potential. There's huge market demand currently. All of these things, the ROI for STEM is just fairly good, right? Like it's been consistently good. If it's not a STEM field, and you cannot go to college for free, right? You cannot go to college for free. I would have to say that college is not worth it for that, right? Not worth it. It's not worth it to go get $80,000 in debt to go make 40. It's not worth it. There are jobs out there like I said, if you are super passionate, because I'm not here to pop anybody's bubble, but if you're super passionate about what it is that you're going after, let that drive you to A, put in for grants and scholarships, and B, not care what school you go to. Go get the education, go get accredited, certified, whatever, and go get after your job and don't come out of debt. A $40,000 a year income with no debt is not bad. A $40,000 a year income with $80,000 in debt is horrific. So that's really the balance that I'm getting at here, is that if student loans is going to be the crux of how you get through college, you need a high earning major to compensate that. You need a good ROI. You need a good return on investment for the time you put into that degree. Because I'm sorry, and I'm not here to be mean, but if you're getting a degree in theology or general social sciences or history or psychology or something along those lines, your pay is going to be a little lower, and it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to have that debt hanging over your head. So stick to my clear-cut answer is college is not worth it unless it's a STEM degree. You need the ROI to support the college. Now, that kind of discusses degree value. I do put a high value on degrees that are going to have a good ROI on the time and money that is put into it. If it's a low return on investment, I challenge the traditional views. A college degree is not your universal key to success. Okay. So now, what is alternatives? What is alternatives to a four-year degree? So we talked about how you can go through and say, okay, yep, I'm going for I want a non-STEM degree. That was where I was headed. What is some things that I can do that can kind of not be a viable alternative to a four-year degree? Well, the first thing is do some type of like vocational training or apprenticeship, or go out and get, professional certifications to prove that you are competent in that field. Those are easy ways. Associate degrees are extremely cheap and highly undervalued. If you can go and get an associate degree in something, that's a good starting point. The four-year degree, it kind of gives you that next level of specialization or whatever. If it's not a STEM specialization, it's just not a good ROI. You could go to a community college, pay, $4,000 a year or whatever. You could probably pay your way through school. You could probably go get a job and pay your way through school and do just fine, right? You'll come out of school, no debt, so forth and so on, and be great. So, but that's what I would tell you. Do some vocational training, do some apprenticeships, go get involved with an associate degree or professional certifications. Those are all great alternatives to a four-year degree. Now, what about managing education costs? Here's my thing, and I talked a little bit about this, and I kind of jumped to my practical tips early on. Is just I was getting a little passionate about the topic. So anyways, number one thing you can do is financial planning before college. So number one thing you can do, that could be, like I said, go into a community college and getting an associate degree instead. There's benefits in that, right? There's benefits in that. Maybe it means you go have to get an associate's degree and you start in the workforce, you save up some money and you pay your way, you kind of piecemeal yourself through and get a bachelor's degree. That could be thing. The other thing that you need to think about when planning is in-state tuition. Don't go and pay out-of-state tuition for the same degree. Like, just go somewhere close by, go somewhere that's cheaper. Don't go to a school to say, oh, I graduated from this school. Go to a school that you can afford, right? And the third thing is, when you think about the planning aspect, is focus on scholarship opportunities. Look for grants. Look for all those type of things that can help fund your way through school. The other big thing that I want to talk about is educational budgeting. It's not just about tuition. It's about the living expenses. It's about the books. It's about the other fees that come with college. So you got to plan for all of that. And you got to be ready for it. Don't let that sneak up on you. Don't resort to debt to try to pay your way through that. There's tons and tons of times where people can kind of jump into it, like, yep, I can afford the tuition, and they get slammed with $1,000 in other costs, and man, it just sets them back, right? And they've already feel like they committed and they just can't get out of it. So avoid that. Do some good planning. The other big thing that I would really, really, really encourage you to do is make sure you have a plan going into school of what you are actually going to get after and what job that's going to land you. Go ahead and do some market searching. Go ahead and see what is the job going to pay that you want to do, right? Because one degree may have like 10 job opportunities in various like areas, right? Like the business admin degree I started with, that probably ranges from like 40,000 to 100,000 out the gates, depending on where you work and what you do, right? So that's a huge gap, and that's just me guessing. But what I'm getting after is that if you will go ahead and plan, here's the degree I'm getting, here's the job that I'm going to go for this degree, here's what the market demand is for this degree, here's what my expected annual salary is after the first 5 years and after the first 15 years. Show some growth there. It shouldn't be like stagnant, right? It should have some career progression. There should be some paths, some steps that you can take to grow in that field. But then look at that and say, how much is this going to cost me? Is what I'm going to make worth it? Because if it's 1-to-1, the answer is not. Like the answer is just absolutely not, right? If you're going to take out 40,000 to make 40,000 a year, absolutely not. You're going to put your life on hold for a decade. You're going to be paying on student loans for 10 years and put your life on hold for a decade. If you graduated school between 22 and 24, your financial life of being debt free will potentially happen without some deliberate effort. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm saying without deliberate effort, you will start your life of like financial freedom, getting houses, things like that around 34, 35, right? Like big difference. Tons of earning potential in there. Think about that same person that goes out and gets a job and makes 40,000 and is debt free. They can start their life in 2 or 3 years, save for some down payments, and off you go. Right? Like big difference. So I challenge you, I encourage you, look at your return on investment for your degree and move forward in that direction. Go through all the other checklists. Is there scholarships available? Can I just go get an associate degree and make the same amount of money? Do I actually need the bachelor's degree? Can I get started? Can I just get an associate's degree and get started and end up making more in the long run by going ahead and getting into the career field? Or can I just sign up and take a few classes to get a security certification and that kickstart my career? All good questions. I don't think traditional views in education is the way of the future unless you're going to a STEM field. And to be all honest with you, I think there will be a shift to where more STEM geared education avenues will open up. I think that'll happen. What that looks like, I'm not sure. I have some things that I perceive, but I do think that'll start to happen. I think traditional education is kind of shifting a little bit. I think people are kind of challenging the traditional view of college and what they if they need it or not. So that's where I stand. Hopefully you got something out of this. Would love to hear your comments. If you are, and this is, if you feel like this is something that you don't mind sharing, I would love for you to just throw in the comment section, hey, yeah, I'm struggling with financial debt. I'm struggling with my student debt. My job just is not paying what it cost me to go to school. Would love to see that. Would love to see people, and throw in there, hey, here's what I'm doing about it though, right? Like throw in like what you're doing about it. Because you didn't land on this episode to say I'm not doing anything about it, right? And if you don't know what to do, I have many videos out there that talk about managing debt, talks about getting out of debt, talks about budgeting, talks about all these things. Like, go and take steps to take care of your financial future. But if you're in a position right now and you're deciding if I'm going to go to college or not, really look at that. But go to the comment section, leave some comments about just telling me where you're at, telling me why you didn't go to college because you didn't want to take on that debt. Like, share the success stories and share the failures too, because those failures will help someone else, guaranteed. So I hope you got something out of this episode. This was something that I saw come across the table, and I just had to, put something together for this, because many people are putting themselves in terrible positions because of going to college, and it's costing them it's costing them 10 years of their life trying to just figure it out, trying to figure out the financial part after college. They get the smiles and the camera and the diploma, and then they walk into the real world and they're like, man, I got to pay that back. Right. Not a good feeling. So I've seen it just destroy people. I've seen it just absolutely tear people down, and where they just don't feel like they can take that next financial step. So don't let that be you. If it is, I do offer financial coaching. So if that's you and you want to get a little help, just helping manage that debt and get rid of it quickly, just head over to thefinancialmirror.org. Hit book now on the middle screen and get your free consultation today. We'll see if I will be the right financial coach for you. And if I am, we'll get you on a package that will benefit you and move you closer to your financial goals. If you do want to give an extra dose of support to the stream, head over to thefinancialmirror.org/shop and pick you up some awesome Financial Mirror gear. Truly appreciate everyone tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share this episode. If you are listening on a podcast platform of your choice, don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast, leave the 5-star review, the written comment, all those kind of good things. And I really hope you got something out of this episode. Till next week, continue improving the one thing you can control, yourself. Peace.
Well, that wraps up today's Financial Mirror. Join us next week as we continue to work on ourselves, change our mentality, and to commit to achieving the success we always envisioned. Regardless of your platform, help us grow as a community. Please like, subscribe, and share with the people in your lives.